Worst prison food in Sing Sing prison. Shocking inmate diet exposed. The stale meal. You think it can't get worse than life in one of New York's most notorious prisons? You're wrong. The food in Sing Sing is punishment in itself. Subscribe, like, and comment below if you dare to face the grim reality inside. The clang of steel doors echoed through the hollow halls of Sing Sing prison, a place known for its infamous past, home to notorious gangsters and killers. But within these walls, it wasn't just the criminal elite who faced their demons. Every day, thousands of men stood in line, facing the same hellish choice: eat what they were given or starve. The smell hit first, the faint stench of rotting meat and burnt vegetables. It lingered in the air, even on the coldest days, seeping into every corner of the mess hall. For years, the daily routine had been the same. Cold oatmeal in the morning, meatloaf that tasted like metal, and watery coffee that barely kept the inmates awake long enough to face the rest of their misery. On April 13, 2016, an unreported tragedy occurred. Inmate Tommy Big T Rodriguez collapsed during the lunch rush. His tray, slopping with greasy mashed potatoes and mushy chicken, still sat in front of him when he fell to the ground, shaking violently. His fellow inmates rushed to his side, but the response was too slow. By the time the guards arrived, it was too late. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest, but rumors began to swirl among the prison population, rumors that the meal he had eaten had been tainted. In fact, many believed that Big T's death wasn't an isolated incident, that others had suffered the same fate, slowly poisoned by the very food meant to sustain them. The investigation begins. Outside, the world kept spinning, indifferent to the quiet suffering inside. But Karen Holt, an investigative reporter with a history of exposing government corruption, had no intention of letting it go unnoticed. When she heard about Big T's death from an anonymous letter, she began asking questions. She started with the basics: who had prepared the meals, where the food came from, and why no one had reported the unsanitary conditions. The more she dug, the darker the picture became. Sing Sing's food contracts were shrouded in mystery. On paper, Midwest Food Supply, a company known for providing budget meals to federal prisons, was the sole contractor for food at Sing Sing. But Karen soon discovered that this wasn't the full story. Leaked emails revealed that Midwest had subcontracted a local supplier, New York Correctional Food Services, a company with a questionable reputation for sourcing low-cost ingredients that sometimes weren't even fit for consumption. Karen's first interview with Marcus Bones Johnson, an ex-inmate who had spent 6 years at Sing Sing, painted a harrowing picture. The food was always garbage, but after a while, it got worse. It was like they were trying to poison us slowly, with every meal, he recalled, voice trembling with the weight of his memory. The files. Karen went through the prison's public records, slowly unraveling a web of negligence. What she found in the kitchen logs shocked her. The maintenance reports showed that the freezers were consistently malfunctioning, and yet there were no emergency replacement entries. The inspection reports dated from 2013 to 2016 all contained a similar pattern. No real inspections were conducted. Instead, low-ranking prison employees were signing off on food safety without even checking the temperature of the storage unit. The food safety protocol itself was outdated. One report from 2014 included the phrase, "Inmate workers may conduct food prep and handling as necessary." In other words, inmates were preparing meals under conditions that would have been deemed illegal in a commercial kitchen. There were no gloves, no sanitation, no oversight. Just men in jumpsuits serving each other food that looked more like scraps than meals. Karen followed the paper trail to Sing Sing's kitchen supervisor, Edward Ed Murphy, whose name appeared frequently in the logs, always signing off on the approvals. After several attempts to contact Murphy through prison channels, Karen was greeted by his assistant, who told her that he had no comment on any allegations. But Karen didn't stop there. She found a disturbing fact in one of the financial documents. Murphy had been receiving kickbacks from Midwest Food Supply for product substitutions. The evidence grows. Karen's next lead came from a current inmate, someone inside who was willing to speak up, but only under the condition that their identity remained anonymous. They spoke about the meatloaf incident, the one Big T had consumed the day he collapsed. "It was supposed to be chicken, but I swear it was rotten," the inmate said, voice shaking. "We were told not to say anything when we found a rat in the food line. But when Big T ate it, everyone knew. They tried to cover it up fast." Karen pushed deeper, uncovering more unsettling truths. Sing Sing's food storage had been found to be filled with expired cans, rotten vegetables, and thawed meat that smelled like decay. The inventory logs showed consistent discrepancies between what was listed and what was actually served. What was worse, the kitchen staff knew, and some were allegedly taking home food that was too spoiled to serve the inmates. The only explanation was that the prison was turning a blind eye to what was happening. The shocking discovery. Karen's investigation reached a boiling point when she managed to obtain confidential internal reports from Midwest Food Supply. Among these documents, she found emails between Murphy and the supplier's CEO, Franklin Cartwright, that were nothing short of disturbing. The emails showed Cartwright instructing Murphy to approve the delivery of subpar ingredients for the next month's shipments. Some of the food was listed as for animals only. The biggest shock came when Karen uncovered a hidden clause in the contract that allowed Midwest to substitute products with cheaper, lower-quality items without the need for prior approval from prison administrators. It seemed like the food suppliers had been making their own rules while the prison authorities turned a blind eye. One email was particularly damning. It read, "Just keep the prices low and don't ask questions about where the food comes from. I'll handle the rest." Franklin Cartwright, CEO. Karen's blood ran cold. This was bigger than she imagined. The negligence was intentional. The deaths, the illnesses, the suffering, it was all part of a system designed to save money at the expense of human lives. She was ready to go public. But before she could make her next move, something unexpected happened. The night before Karen was set to release her report, she received a phone call. The voice on the other end was familiar, her editor at the New York Times. "Karen, we have a problem," he said, his voice tense. "The prison's legal team just contacted us. They want a meeting. They're threatening to sue over your investigation. They have new evidence. They're playing hardball." Karen's heart raced. The system was closing in. But what was this new evidence they were holding? Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again, a text message from an unknown number. "We know what you're digging into. Drop it, or you'll regret it." The room felt smaller, suffocating. The walls of Sing Sing, once a distant, sterile place, now felt like they were closing in around her. She was too close. And someone was willing to do anything to stop her. The smell of fear. If you think you've seen the worst of Leavenworth's kitchen, think again. The truth is far more sinister, and it's about to catch up with Karen Holt. Subscribe now, because this is where the story takes a deadly turn. The following day, Karen couldn't shake the weight of the anonymous text. "We know what you're digging into. Drop it, or you'll regret it." Who was behind it? The prison? The suppliers? Or someone higher up? Her thoughts raced as she paced the tiny apartment she had rented for this investigation. There was only one option: keep digging. She was close. Closer than ever before. But now she was up against an invisible force, powerful, hidden, and willing to protect its secrets at any cost. She had no idea how right she was. The meeting at midnight. At 11:45 p.m., Karen received a call. This time, the voice was unmistakable. It was Chris Daniels, a former prison guard turned whistleblower who had been helping her. "Karen," he whispered urgently. "I've got something you need to see. Meet me by the south entrance in 30 minutes. Karen's pulse quickened. She knew Daniels had access to the staffing files and the logbooks, critical information that could blow the entire story wide open. But there was no telling what he'd uncovered this time. She threw on her jacket and grabbed her camera. For a moment, she paused, staring at the old newspaper clippings pinned to the wall. Photos of Sing Sing, Big T, and the disgusting food trays, they were all pieces of the puzzle she had to finish. She had no idea how deep it went. The south entrance. The air was thick with fog as Karen parked her car near the south entrance of Sing Sing, a less traveled part of the prison grounds. Only a few lights flickered from the guard tower in the distance, casting shadows across the razor wire that separated the facility from the outside world. She felt a chill run down her spine. It wasn't the cold that bothered her. It was the feeling of being watched. The sound of footsteps broke the silence. She turned quickly. "Chris," she called softly. A figure emerged from the darkness, his silhouette leaning forward as if to keep low. Daniels stepped closer, his face pale, eyes wide with fear. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You're risking your life coming here," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "I didn't want to get you involved, but they're watching me now. The files you want, they're not in the system anymore." Karen's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "I know the prison's been suppressing records, but I need those files to finish the story." Daniels stepped closer, whispering urgently, "You've been looking in the wrong places. The logs are fake. The kitchen inspections are staged. There's a deeper problem. The whole system is rigged. I've got the proof." Karen's mind raced. "You're telling me they're faking inspections? How deep does this go?" Daniels took a deep breath. "I can't say much, but they're using the food supply as a money laundering operation." The words hit like a gut punch. "Money laundering?" Karen whispered. "Through the food." Daniels nodded. "It's not just the food. It's how they've been covering their tracks. They're moving illegal goods through the prison. I've seen shipments that aren't on any manifest. Stuff meant for prison security is going missing, and all of it's tied to the suppliers you're looking at." He handed her a flash drive, his hands trembling. "All the evidence is on this. But be careful. They'll come for you the moment you start asking questions they don't want answered." Karen took the drive, her heart pounding. "I'll get this to the right people." Daniels grabbed her arm. "You don't understand, Karen. The moment they find out you've got this..." Suddenly, a car rounded the corner. Headlights cut through the fog and Daniels's eyes widened. He backed away, panic flashing across his face. "They're here," he hissed. "Go. Now." Karen didn't think twice. She shoved the flash drive into her pocket and ran. She could hear Daniels's frantic footsteps behind her, but she didn't dare look back. As she reached her car, she glanced at the approaching vehicle. A black SUV with tinted windows slowed down in front of the entrance. Inside, a figure in a dark suit stared straight ahead, his face expressionless. The car parked just behind her. Karen jumped into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and started the engine. The SUV's headlights flared in her rearview mirror, but she didn't wait to see if it followed. She floored the gas pedal, tires screeching as she took off down the narrow road. The ticking clock. Karen didn't stop driving until she reached her apartment. Her hands were shaking as she fumbled for the keys. The drive had felt like hours, but in reality, it was only minutes. She locked the door behind her and sat down at the small desk in the corner of her room. The flash drive still felt cold in her pocket. She plugged it into her laptop and opened the file. The first document that appeared was a sealed report, dated 2015, from the prison's internal audit team. It outlined discrepancies in the food supply chain, labeling certain delivery invoices as lost or misplaced. Then she saw something that made her blood run cold, payments made directly to offshore accounts, with vague references to supplier rebates. Rebates? Karen whispered. What kind of rebates? As she scrolled down, more records opened, invoice numbers with fake suppliers attached to each one. These weren't just small discrepancies. The prison was collaborating with suppliers to move money through fraudulent food contracts. Some of the invoices listed foods that had never been delivered to Sing Sing at all. Then, the most chilling part of the file appeared: names of high-level prison officials who had signed off on the deals. At the very bottom, one name stood out: Warden James Carlisle. Karen froze. She recognized the name from previous reports. Warden Carlisle had been known for his tough-on-crime stance and had served in Sing Sing for over a decade. Yet his signature appeared on several of the fraudulent documents, proof that he was involved. The threat that follows. Her phone buzzed on the desk. The screen lit up with an unknown number. Her fingers hesitated before picking it up. Karen Holt? The voice on the other end asked, calm but chilling. You've been asking the wrong questions. I suggest you stop now, or you'll regret it. Karen's pulse raced. The voice was familiar, but she couldn't place it. Who is this? She demanded, her hand trembling. You already know, the voice replied. You've been digging into places you shouldn't. Warden Carlisle is a good man, and you don't want to destroy everything he's worked for. Karen's throat went dry. What do you want from me? You know what you have to do. Delete the drive. Drop the story. Disappear. Or the next time you hear from us, it will be the last. The line went dead. Her breath came in short, ragged bursts as she stared at the phone. This was it. The warning. The endgame. Karen didn't delete the drive. She couldn't. She knew what was at stake. She knew that if she backed down now, nothing would change. The truth would be buried, and more men would die, eaten alive by the system meant to protect them. But that was the moment she realized the stakes had grown higher. She wasn't just exposing food corruption anymore. She was digging into something far bigger. The phone call wasn't just a threat, it was a warning. And someone wanted her silenced, before she could uncover the truth. She looked back at the screen, a new realization dawning. This wasn't just about food. It was about power, corruption, and a system designed to keep the truth buried, no matter the cost. If she kept going, she might not make it out alive. The last ingredient. If you think you've seen the worst of the corruption inside Sing Sing, you haven't seen anything yet. Karen Holt is about to uncover the final piece of the puzzle, but it could cost her more than she bargained for. Stay tuned and hit subscribe, because the truth isn't just ugly, it's deadly. Karen sat motionless at her desk, the flashing cursor on her screen the only sign of life in the small, dimly lit apartment. The flash drive, the one that had been handed to her in the dead of night, was still plugged into her laptop, and the documents she had uncovered seemed to stretch out endlessly. She had thought the prison food scandal was the key. The corruption she was uncovering felt massive, but there was something lurking beneath the surface. The files from Midwest Food Supply revealed a disturbing pattern of money laundering, fake suppliers, and falsified reports. But as Karen scanned through Warden Carlisle's handwritten notes, she noticed a recurring name, one that didn't fit. It was a name she hadn't seen before. A name buried in the margins of official documents: Barrett Industries. At first, she thought it was just another vendor, maybe the company that handled cleaning supplies or something menial. But when Karen pulled up the financial records for Barrett Industries, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Barrett didn't deal in cleaning supplies. It wasn't a minor contractor at all. Barrett Industries was a defense contractor. And not just any contractor, a major one. The hidden deal. Barrett Industries had been involved in massive military contracts for over a decade. Their name was attached to several multimillion-dollar deals, but that wasn't what struck Karen as odd. What was strange was how their company name kept appearing in the same financial statements as the prison food contract. Karen dug deeper. The connections were undeniable. It was clear now, Sing Sing prison wasn't just paying for food. It was funneling money into a military-grade procurement system, equipment, weapons, and technology. The prison's budget for food had been inflated, and the excess funds were routed through Barrett Industries, where they were repurposed for something far darker. Karen's fingers trembled as she read the final line on the contract, which was written in fine print. All supplies to be delivered to Sing Sing prison via Barrett Industries and signed off by Warden Carlyle. That was the connection. The food was just the tip of the iceberg. The real money, the real corruption, was happening behind closed doors, funding secret military contracts under the guise of prison logistics. Karen couldn't believe what she was reading. She knew she was onto something huge, but this was no longer just a food scandal. This was a government conspiracy, one that ran far deeper than she could have imagined. She had to go back to Sing Sing. She had to confront Carlyle. But she also knew this was no longer just about exposing the truth. She was about to uncover something bigger. And there would be no going back. The midnight visit. Karen waited 3 days before making her move. In that time, her phone had been flooded with anonymous messages. The warnings grew more threatening, the tone more desperate. Stop or it's over. We'll take care of you. The prison's bigger than you, Karen. Let it go. But she had come too far to stop now. She stood outside the Sing Sing gates at midnight, hidden in the shadows of the guard tower. She couldn't risk being caught inside. But she needed answers. She needed to know what Carlyle knew. It was too risky for a direct confrontation, so she took a different approach. Karen had once been a reporter for the New York Times. She knew how to use a hidden camera to catch people off guard. With a small, concealed mic and camera clipped to her jacket, she approached the prison gate. The guards were distracted by routine checks. There was no one watching the staff entrance. She slipped through the shadows, past the security cameras, and into the admin building. Inside, the air was cold, sterile. Karen paused in front of Warden Carlyle's office door. His name was boldly printed in gold on the glass. She knew this was her one shot. If she could get into his office, she might find something to expose the entire conspiracy. The door creaked slightly as she eased it open. The room was dark, save for a lamp glowing on the far side of the room. She moved quickly, her shoes barely making a sound on the polished floor. And then she saw it. On Carlyle's desk, next to an old leather-bound binder, was an envelope, its contents sticking out. Karen hesitated, then grabbed it, slipping it into her jacket. She moved out of the office and back toward the exit. The proof. Back in her apartment, Karen opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a contract, marked confidential. It outlined a deal between Sing Sing Prison, Barrett Industries, and several military contractors that involved weaponry, surveillance equipment, and anti-riot gear. The amounts were staggering, millions of dollars in funds being diverted from the prison system. The deal detailed how these materials were purchased under the guise of prison supplies. She found one name written at the bottom of the contract, James Carlyle. There it was, the proof. Carlyle had been receiving kickbacks and overseeing illegal military-grade transactions. Sing Sing wasn't just a prison. It was a front for something much bigger. Karen's hands shook as she examined the document. This wasn't just about food. This was about public funds being funneled into a secret military agenda. And Carlyle wasn't just a corrupt warden. He was part of a nationwide conspiracy that reached far beyond New York's prison walls. The confrontation. With the evidence in hand, Karen made her way to the state attorney's office. She had secured everything she needed to take down Carlyle, everything she needed to expose the depths of this corruption. But as she walked into the building, her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. You have no idea what you're messing with. This is bigger than you. Before she could react, her phone rang. The voice on the other end was low, dark. Karen, I think you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life. It was Warden Carlyle. Her blood ran cold. She had just left his office. He knew. You think you're the first to uncover this? Carlyle continued, his voice like venom. You think you can bring down Sing Sing? I've been here for over 20 years, and I've seen people like you come and go. Karen steadied her breath. I know what you've done. I know about the weapons, the kickbacks, the food. And I'm going to make sure it gets out. Carlyle's chuckle echoed in her ear. You think anyone will believe you? The moment I get my hands on that evidence, you'll disappear. And nobody will even ask questions. The twist. Karen's heart raced as she ended the call. She glanced at the clock. Time was running out. She needed to go public now, before Carlyle could bury the truth. But there was still one missing piece, one question she hadn't answered. Who else was involved? How far did the conspiracy go? She made a decision. She would leak the story to the press immediately. She had to. The price of justice. You've seen the food, you've heard the threats, but now Karen Holt is about to uncover the price she'll have to pay for seeking the truth. This time, it's not just her story on the line, it's her life. Hit subscribe and hold on tight. The real battle begins now. Karen sat in the sterile, fluorescent-lit office of Assistant District Attorney Marcus Stoke. She had spent the last 20 minutes explaining everything: the food fraud, the military-grade contracts, and the involvement of Warden Carlyle in a multi-million-dollar operation. She had laid out the evidence. The leaked documents, the contract from Barrett Industries, and the emails that had been sent from Carlyle's personal inbox, instructing suppliers to adjust inventory to cover up the illegal deals. But Stokes wasn't looking at the evidence. Instead, he stared at her, his face unreadable, his pen tapping nervously on the desk. You don't get it, do you? He finally said, his voice tight with frustration. You think you can just walk in here, drop these bombshells, and expect us to throw Warden Carlyle in jail? You're not the first person to try. Karen's stomach twisted. She knew the game they were playing. The system was designed to protect its own, to protect the powerful, to protect people like Carlyle. She had learned that much in her years as a journalist. This is bigger than Carlyle. Karen's voice was steady now, no hint of doubt in it. This goes all the way up. He's just one piece of a much larger operation. Stokes leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled together. You're right about one thing, this is big. But you're also in way over your head. You can't take down a man like Carlyle without consequences. And once you open this door, there's no going back. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a thick file. He opened it slowly, laying it flat in front of Karen. The first page was blank, but as he flipped through it, her heart sank. Inside were names, dates, and locations, information she hadn't seen before. It was the same financial data, the same contract terms, but the people involved were different. Higher-ups, people with political connections. And it hit her like a wave. Warden Carlyle wasn't the top dog. He was only a middleman. The hidden network. As she stared at the file, Karen's mind raced. She recognized some of the names: Congressman Carl Hayden, State Senator Laura Goldstein, and Judge Thomas Ellison. These were influential figures, some of the most powerful people in New York's political and judicial system. Their names had been buried in the background of the food contracts and military-grade transactions. But now it was clear. They weren't just sitting at the top of the pyramid, they were actively benefiting from it. Karen took a deep breath. So, you're telling me that Carlyle is just the tip of the iceberg? Stokes didn't answer, his gaze shifting to the file. He seemed conflicted, as if something about this whole situation was gnawing at him, something he didn't want to say out loud. "You need to understand something, Karen," Stokes finally spoke, his voice quiet, almost defeated. "There are people with power, people with money, who will do anything to protect themselves. If you keep pushing this, you'll be fighting against the entire system. You're not just up against Carlisle. You're up against everyone who has a hand in this, everyone." A shiver ran down her spine. She knew the stakes, but hearing it from someone inside the system made her blood run cold. The walls were closing in, and everybody was watching. Suddenly, Karen felt the weight of her decision. Was she prepared to take down an entire network of corruption, or would she fold like so many others before her? Was the truth worth it? The message. The door to the office creaked open, and an officer walked in. He was young, his uniform slightly disheveled, and his eyes darted nervously between Karen and Stokes. "Sir," the officer said, "there's a call for Ms. Holt." Karen raised an eyebrow, a twinge of unease creeping in. Who would be calling her here? She hadn't given anyone the office number. Stokes waved his hand dismissively. "Take the call, Holt. I'll be here when you get back." Karen stood up, her legs feeling like lead as she walked toward the door. Something about this felt wrong, too easy, too clean. But she didn't have time to question it. She had to know who was trying to contact her. She picked up the receiver, her heartbeat thumping in her ears. "Hello?" A voice crackled through the line, familiar and urgent. "Karen, listen to me carefully. You need to leave. They're coming for you." Her blood turned to ice. "Who is this?" The voice was low, clipped, like someone who had been awake for days. "You've been poking around places you shouldn't be. The people you're investigating are watching you, every move, every conversation. The files you have, they know you have them. And they'll do anything to keep them hidden." Karen's grip tightened on the receiver. "What do you want from me?" "Get out of New York. Go now. They're on to you. It's not just Carlisle. There's someone in your circle. Someone close. Watch your back." The line went dead before Karen could respond. The betrayal. Karen stood there, the receiver still in her hand, her mind reeling. Who could have known she was so close? Had she been betrayed by someone she trusted? Her thoughts drifted back to Stokes, the way he had been so unwilling to dig deeper, so quick to warn her. Was he part of this? Was he involved in the cover-up? The feeling of unease lingered, but she pushed it aside. She had real work to do. Her phone buzzed, snapping her from her thoughts. It was a message from Chris Daniels. "Meet me at the usual spot. Their cleaning house. Bring the files. Now." That was all it took. She grabbed the flash drive, shoved it into her jacket pocket, and headed for the door. She couldn't stay here any longer. Stokes was a liability, and she wasn't sure who else she could trust. She had one chance to get the truth out before they silenced her for good. The encounter. At 2 a.m., Karen arrived at the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Albany, the usual meeting place where she and Daniels had exchanged information in the past. The fog was thick, the air damp and heavy. She stepped out of the car and glanced around nervously. Chris Daniels was already there, standing in the shadows by the door. He waved her over. His eyes were wide, and his voice shaky when he spoke. "It's getting worse, Karen. They're already pulling the strings. If you don't act fast, you won't make it out alive." Karen swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. "I'm not backing down. I have the evidence. We're going public." Daniels hesitated. "That's exactly what they want, Karen. They're playing you. There's a leak. Someone's been giving them intel on your movements. You're being watched." The sound of footsteps behind them made Karen freeze. The door creaked open. A tall figure emerged from the fog, Warden Carlisle. Karen's heart skipped a beat. "What do you think you're doing?" Carlisle's voice was low, cold. "You think you can bring down Sing Sing? You think you can expose what's been built over decades? Karen stepped forward, confronting him. I'm doing what you won't. I'm exposing the truth. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you've done. Carlyle's lips curled into a grim smile. You think it's that easy? You think you control the narrative? I don't think you realize who you're dealing with. This isn't just about food. It's about something far bigger. Something you'll never understand. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. The darkness swallowed them whole. The final twist. Karen took one step back, the reality of the situation crashing down. Carlyle wasn't just a corrupt warden. He was the architect of a system that was too powerful to dismantle. Then it hit her. The files, the messages, Danielle's warning. They weren't just trying to stop her from exposing a few bad apples. They were trying to stop her from exposing the entire system. In that moment, she realized the truth was darker than she had ever imagined. The conspiracy stretched deeper than she could possibly uncover. And the only way out of it was to risk everything and fight for the truth. But as the cold wind howled outside, Karen knew, no matter what, she had to finish this. She had no other choice. The final stand. The walls are closing in on Karen Holt. She has the evidence, the truth, but the powers that be are prepared to do anything to keep it buried. As she races against time, the question remains, will she expose the truth, or will she become its final victim? Subscribe now, because Karen's battle is just beginning, and it's going to be her hardest fight yet. Karen had always known that the truth came with a price, but now, standing in the dark, damp warehouse with Warden Carlyle's mocking smile burning into her mind, she understood exactly what that cost would be. She had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The flash drive in her pocket felt like a weight of lead, but it was the only thing standing between the corrupt system and the people who had the power to stop it. Carlyle wasn't just a warden, he was a puppet master. She couldn't go public with the story yet. The threats were escalating, and now she realized that someone inside her circle had tipped them off. The leak had to be plugged before she could expose the network of corruption that ran far deeper than Sing Sing's walls. But as Carlyle's smug figure loomed closer, Karen knew that exposing the truth wasn't just about writing an article or producing a documentary, it was about survival. The confrontation. Do you think I'd let you walk away with all of this? Carlyle's voice was low, filled with venom. His cold eyes never left hers. You think anyone's going to believe you? A reporter with an agenda? You're already too deep, Karen. And now you're a threat. Karen's breath quickened. The air in the warehouse grew suffocating. She could feel the darkness closing in, the weight of her choices pressing down on her chest. She wasn't just a reporter anymore, she was a target. I've got the evidence, Carlyle, she said, her voice unwavering. And I'm going to make sure it sees the light of day, no matter what it costs me. Carlyle chuckled darkly. You really think you're the first one to try and take me down? You think you're different. He stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. Karen stood her ground, the reality of what she was up against settling in. She had no backup, no one who could protect her. This wasn't just about exposing corruption, it was about fighting for her life. You don't get it, do you? Carlyle continued, his tone growing colder. This is bigger than you. This is a machine. A system that has been running for decades. Do you really think you can destroy that? Karen took a step back, trying to steady her pulse. I don't have to destroy it. I just have to expose it. But Carlyle wasn't finished. You're already too late. The damage is done. There's nothing left for you but regret. As he stepped closer, his eyes narrowed. Get out of here, Karen. Before I make you disappear, like all the others who tried to stand up to me. The threat. Karen didn't move. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow. Carlyle's words echoed in her head, but there was something in his eyes now, something that didn't match his bravado. Fear. She had no idea what Carlyle was capable of, but she was certain now. This wasn't just a threat to silence her, it was a matter of control. "If I leave here tonight," Karen said, her voice hard, "you'll get away with it." But not for long. Carlyle's face twisted into a grin. "You think they'll care about your little expose? They're already in bed with me. I've got connections that'll erase you before you even get a headline." His words stung, but Karen had no choice now. She had to act. She had to be smarter than he thought she was. "I know what you're doing, Carlyle," Karen said, her voice steady. "You're using Sing Sing and every other prison to funnel money into military contracts, into weapons, into a system that uses inmates as pawns. You're selling people out for profit. And I'm not going to let you get away with it." There was a shift in the air. For a split second, Carlyle's mask slipped, and Karen saw something in his eyes: rage. He wasn't used to being challenged. "You don't understand the game, Karen," he spat. "You're just another pawn. Just like the rest of them. I control the board." As he said this, Karen realized the horrifying truth. He had already set the pieces in motion. The system, the corruption, it had all been a carefully crafted plan, a web of lies and deception designed to keep the truth buried. But she wasn't done yet. The final move. As Carlyle lunged toward her, Karen's instincts kicked in. She took a step back, her hand slipping into her jacket pocket. She had been planning this move for days, the moment when she would finally turn the tables. She pulled out the flash drive, her heart racing. She had one chance, to get it into the right hands before Carlyle could stop her. "Drop it!" Carlyle barked, reaching for her. But Karen was faster. She hurled the flash drive across the room, just as the sound of footsteps echoed from behind them. The door swung open. 2 FBI agents, both dressed in black, their badges hanging from their necks, stepped into the warehouse, guns drawn. "Warden Carlyle, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and abuse of power," one of the agents said, his voice cold and authoritative. Karen blinked in disbelief. It was happening. The cavalry had arrived. But then, a voice came from the shadows, a third figure, watching from the corner of the room. Karen's heart skipped a beat as the person stepped forward. It was Chris Daniels. The twist. Chris wasn't just an informant. He wasn't just a whistleblower. He had been working with the FBI all along. "I had to get you to trust me," Daniels said, his voice soft but firm. "I needed you to dig deeper, to uncover what was really happening. I couldn't let you walk into a trap." Karen's mind was racing. The betrayal hit her like a slap to the face. Daniels had known all along, had been playing both sides to take down Carlyle from the inside. "You set me up?" she asked, her voice thick with disbelief. "I'm sorry," Daniels said, stepping closer. "But I couldn't let Carlyle use you to get away with it. He's too powerful. We needed you to expose the truth, but we also needed him to slip up. Now he has." The arrest. Carlyle's face twisted in rage as the agents moved toward him, cuffing him with swift, practiced movements. But it wasn't over yet. As the agents led Carlyle out of the warehouse, Karen turned to Daniels. "You knew. You knew everything." He nodded, his expression apologetic but resolute. "You're not the only one who's been following the money, Karen. I've been watching Carlyle for years. And now we've finally got him. We've got all of it, the contracts, the kickbacks, everything." Karen let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Then it's over?" Daniels didn't answer right away. He handed her a folder, documents, files, and a sealed envelope. "There's more, Karen. Much more. But this is only the beginning. The price of justice." By the time the sun began to rise, Karen was standing in front of her computer, staring at the footage she'd just received, the final piece of the puzzle. It was the full recording of Carlyle's phone conversations, detailing every illegal transaction, every bribe, every twisted deal. She clicked send on the email, the files going directly to the New York Times, to Senator Laura Goldstein, and to the FBI task force. Her work wasn't over. But for the first time in months, she felt like she could finally breathe. As the news of Carlisle's arrest broke, the prison system began to unravel. The connections between military contractors, corrupt officials, and the prison industrial complex were exposed for the world to see. And Sing Sing wasn't the only prison in the country with a rotting core. The final revelation. In the weeks that followed, Karen watched as the investigation spread like wildfire. Senators spoke on the Senate floor about the need for prison reform. The FBI conducted raids on prison suppliers across the nation. But as Karen sat down to write her final report, the doorbell rang. She opened it to find an envelope on her doorstep, no return address. Inside was a single note. "You think this is over? It's just begun. There's still plenty more we're hiding." The note wasn't signed, but Karen knew exactly who it came from. The system had just barely cracked, and she was going to keep pushing until it fell apart.